Many towns have either modern churches built on top of earlier sites or little picturesque ruins still present. Holywood, County Down has this beautiful example, but its history is not quite what it seems. At first glance, it would be reasonable to assume Holywood has its origins in the medieval epoch, with a motte and fine medieval priory, but its foundations and that of the associated development of the village is much, much older. The anglicised name Holywood comes from the Latin Sanctus Boscus, literally meaning holy wood. This was the name the Anglo-Normans gave to the woodland surrounding the monastery of St. Lazaran. This developed and varied over the later medieval period, with references in the 13th century altering. In 1210, it is recorded that King John halted apud Sanctum Boscum when on his way from Carrickfergus to Downpatrick. In 1217, Jordanus de Saukville was confirmed by Henry III in the possession of his lands de Sancto Bosco. Latterly, in the taxation of Pope Nicholas IV, around 1300, the first true path to its current name is referenced, with the settlement referred to as Holywood and being worth 6 marks. Tying its foundation back to the monastic site, the indigenous Irish name for Holywood is Ardvignaska, meaning high ground of Macnaska. This is a reference to a monastery that was founded by Lazaran, son of Nasca, in the mid-7th century near, or more likely on, the site of the present priory. St. Lazaran's festival was recorded as being on the 25th of October. Nasca is thought to have been a local princess, and local historian Tony Merrick suggested that the high ground or height so named was in the vicinity of the present-day Twistle Bridge. O'Laverty, in the late 19th century, wrote that the priory site was located a few perches, with a perch equaling approximately 5 metres, to the north of a funerary mound predating the ecclesiastical site, and probably belonged to a mighty chief. It was named in association with Lazaran simply because it stood in the grounds adjacent to his church. Further upslope to the south is another link to these times with a Dark Ages or early Christian date rath excavated by Professor Proudfoot in 1958 towards the top of Croft Road, where Woodcroft Lane is currently situated. Raths or ring forts are a common monument type in the Irish landscape. These circular enclosures vary across the island and in building techniques, some in stone and some using earth. In northeast Ireland, they were usually constructed with a ditch and earthen bank and were primarily used as homesteads and farmsteads, often located near important communication routes and resources. In early medieval legal texts, domestic dwellings are commonly mentioned as being located within an enclosed area known as a leas, generally translated as farmyard or courtyard. This leas or enclosed space was defined by its principal enclosing feature, which was most commonly a rath. They can vary in scale massively, with some impressive raths undoubtedly ceremonial, for example, the Rathcrogan complex in Roscommon and at Tara. However, they were used for a variety of purposes beyond just housing. They have produced evidence of metalworking, pottery production, and animal husbandry. This suggests that raths served as both residences and centres of economic activity for their communities. Proudfoot uncovered souterrain-ware pottery and a bronze ring-headed pin from what was interpreted as a rath. Souterrain-ware pottery is a coarse and utilitarian type of early medieval pottery that is more common in the east of Ulster. There is some debate about its origins, but it is used to date features and is accepted as emerging anywhere from the 6th to 8th centuries, tying nicely with the story of the place name evidence. Further test excavations near the Rath site in 2004 uncovered many pits, hearths and finds, but only one feature and finds were from a secured, undisturbed context, and these were also suturing ware, and as such, early Christian or Dark Ages indeed. Although the various annals remain silent about Holywood for the ensuing 5 centuries, it is likely that the monastic community would have been ravaged by the Vikings during the same raids that laid waste to Bangor in the 9th century. Approximately 150 metres to the southwest is the site of Holywood Motte, an earthwork that has always provided intrigue for me. Now only open for a few hours on a Sunday afternoon, it has been speculated that this may be the site at which King John stopped in July 1210, although there is no firm linking evidence. I remember being told by a local historian that there had been an amateur antiquarian excavation at the top, but have been unable to find any records. I also conducted a somewhat fruitless geophysical survey of its summit, but the whole site has been quite badly interfered with. I also always questioned its scale. The Dunlop motte, which is close to Holywood, under 5 miles away, is quite massive in comparison, and I always wondered if Holywood motte was a raised rath quickly converted for an immediate need by the Anglo-Normans. So this is Holywood motte, and I'd forgotten just how built up this actually is. On the north side of this monument, very steep slope. The southern side has been really quite badly messed with. It's been built up over many years, and this staircase put in the Victorian era. I was going to come here and say how small this was and how if King John had stopped here, this maybe wasn't it. But I might be wrong on that one. I'll take you for a brief tour, but one of the things I really want to show you is how the north side of this monument shows how big this motte may actually have been when it was originally constructed. So I'm currently standing on the northern side of the site, and one of the elements that's now gone, that would have been here, is a ditch around the bottom of the motte. Now, the image probably doesn't do this justice, but that is a very steep slope up to the top of the motte, and if I was an attacker trying to come in here and run up this, probably a palisaded top with all sorts of things being thrown at you. No, there's a reason that these were built by the Anglo-Normans to defend their positions. Its purpose, though, whatever its original construction date, seems to have been to command the narrow coastal strip between the high ground and the shore of Belfast Lough. Further to the King John reference, there is also a reference made to Holywood Castle in 1234, so something was here at the same time as the earlier monastic site. It is likely that much of the current town's early development focused on the priory religious site, so around Priory Park, Stuart's Place and Victoria Road. There are also records and old maps showing one of the many burns and rivers running around the front of the site, by front that equates to the western side, that ran into Belfast Lough, likely delineating the religious site from any secular community. The present ruins do contain large amounts of a late 12th, early 13th century Anglo-Norman Augustinian abbey built by Thomas White. The church consists of a nave and chancel without structural division, 22.5 metres by 6 metres internally, with a west tower. The original building is 13th century and entered on the south. Also built into the south wall was a 13th century coffin lid with a St Andrew style cross and a pair of shears, indicating that the grave was likely that of a female. The coffin lid was removed to the North Down Heritage Centre. In the 15th century, the west end was rebuilt with a new entrance and east altar window replaced. The tower was added in the 18th century, mimicked by the current Presbyterian church to the south. In the south wall are 3/4 height 17th century windows, now all blocked up. There is also a piscina with trefoil head and dogtooth ornament. After the Black Death in the mid-14th century, Niall O'Neill refurbished the church for the Franciscan order. The priory was dissolved on New Year's Day 1541 by Henry VIII with its lands passing into the hands of the O'Neill family and then to Sir James Hamilton, 1st Viscount Clandeboye. It was Hamilton who laid out the town with a maypole at the crossroads. So what do we learn from this little town? Scratch the surface, and often there's a more interesting history lying beneath.